Welcome to Catalytic Leadership, the podcast designed to help leaders intentionally grow and thrive. Here is your host, author, and leadership and executive coach, Dr. William Attaway.
Hey, it's William, and welcome to today's episode of the Catalytic Leadership Podcast. Each week, we tackle a topic related to the field of leadership. My goal is to ensure that you have actionable steps you can take from each episode to grow in your own leadership. Growth doesn't just happen. My goal is to help you become intentional about it. Each week, we spotlight leaders from a variety of fields, organizations, and locations. And my goal is for you to see that leaders can be catalytic no matter where they are or what they lead. I draw inspiration from the stories and journeys of these leaders, and I hear from many of you that you do too. Let's jump into today's interview. I am thrilled today to have Chris DuBois on the podcast. Chris swapped military marches for marketing metrics. As an Army veteran turned CEO of Lean Labs, they are the mechanics under the hood of B2B tech and SaaS companies, turbocharging their websites and their marketing strategies. He has played detective with industry titans like HubSpot, Atlassian, and Salesforce, uncovering their secrets to success. What's he discovered? Solid foundations beat flimsy fads. Aligned goals are the secret handshake of high-performing teams, and strategic systems are the roadmaps to growth. He's also had the pleasure of working with business leaders, coaching them to increase effectiveness and efficiency within their organizations. And Chris, I'm so excited you're on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I get excited with that bio. It's like, all right, let's do this.
Let's go. I would love for you to share some of your story with our listeners, particularly around your journey and your development as a leader. How did you get started?
Yeah. So obviously I got all I was the captain of the ski team and those fun things. But I think my real leadership journey started when I joined the Army. Mm-hmm. I had enlisted into the Army Reserves so that I could still finish college, do ROTC, and then I commissioned as an infantry officer. Nice. And did all the fun training and fun in air quotes training to be able to get out and lead soldiers. Yeah. And my first unit was up in Fairbanks, Alaska, Fort Wainwright, and I was a platoon leader up there. And so I had, I'm 22 years old. I've got 36 men, in my unit, and I'm responsible for, I think it was $13.8 million worth of equipment. And so kind of a big price tag, and
a little bit,
including the lives of 36 guys. But
right.
It was great. It was one of the best experiences you can have. And I was with a great team. I got to learn a lot from these guys, and I performed really well in that position. And so our battalion commander said, you know what, I really want to pull you up to work directly with me so I can kind of keep coaching you, because I think you have some potential here that I really want to lean into. Yeah. That personally was miserable because I became his assistant, right? So I was following him around. I was doing his calendar. I was doing all the things that weren't necessarily running around, shooting things, doing the fun infantry stuff. But when I was up there, I got to see kind of the bigger picture, right? So rather than just seeing my platoon, I got to see, a lot of platoons within all of the companies, and then how they interacted as a battalion. And through that, I started noticing different leadership styles that were coming out. And there were some individuals who could perform really well in one position, and they would go somewhere else, and then they were not doing very well. But others were just excelling everywhere they went. They were doing something great. And what I realized was that the reason they were doing great wasn't because of just them showing up and saying, all right, these are the systems I need to put into play. It was them showing up, looking at the unit that they were working with, saying, what do they need from me? And then shifting their leadership style to better match that. And so I started working through this concept of dynamic leadership, right? The ability to take in everything it's around there's multiple types of awareness, but you got to know how you show up, how your team is showing up. What do you have to work with? What assets are within your control? What's the situation look like? And once you know all of these details, you can kind of shape how you're approaching the situation in order to actually be the leader that, is required right now. And so you can see, I won't name names, but you can see there are CEOs who have been very successful in a company and they go somewhere else and try running it the same way, and that company just can't take off.
Yeah.
And it's because they're following the exact same playbook.
Yeah.
But you can't, because the market's different now. Even you can't run, if Apple had the same company starting right now, you can't do it. It's just the competition, the market's much wider. There's just too many other things in play. And so I really just started to lean into that, right? This dynamic leadership, and how can I keep finding ways to become more aware of the situation, more aware of what's going on, so that I can build some of the skills to be able to, actually get the results.
Yeah.
And I kind of carried that through a lot of my military career. So I spent 7 years active duty, and when I left, I was a captain who was running as an operations officer and battalion executive officer at the same time. We just had a shortage, so I assumed both jobs. Those are usually major positions, and I was a rank below doing both of them.
Wow.
And it was actually, it was enjoyable. I like the high stress environments. But I approached it with this dynamic leadership. And so it was I showed up and said, all right, what do we need in order, for me to show up for the team? And it wasn't that, hey, I have all this training. It's I knew I didn't have that training. So what else can I be doing right now in order to pull different assets in, different team members in order to make this work? And so that carried over. I'm still in the Army Reserves. I just actually finished battalion command now as a major. I was asked to step up, fill that position, which was actually a lot of fun because you don't usually get that opportunity. And it was great. But when I was leaving the Army, I needed an actual job. And so I'd reached out to a company that I'd worked with before as a copywriter. And they said, well, actually, we're looking for someone to hire. We'd love to have you on the team. So I started working with them. And after about 9 months of just learning how to market, because I had really no idea, I ended up stepping up to become the head of operations for the company because I had the leadership skills that we needed. Did that for 2.5-ish years, and then stepped up to actually be the CEO of the company. And so I've been doing that. And through this, I've had a lot of people reach out and just say hey, can you actually help me with these problems and do this? I'm oh, I could actually get into coaching. This is super enjoyable. Yeah. And so I've started leaning into the coaching side as well. And I have systems, I have frameworks, and now I have an opportunity to actually share them and help other leaders kind of do the same thing.
I love that, Chris. I love the others-centric part of that is woven throughout that story, right? You step into a new place, you step into a new responsibility, and you're not saying, all right, so this is how I do it, so everybody better follow, everybody better do it the way I do it. No. No matter, in all through your journey, you're coming in and you're asking questions, and you're observing, and you're increasing your awareness, not just around what your preferences are.
Yeah.
But what does the organization need? What does the team need? What are these people that you have been tasked to lead? What do they need? What's best for them? What's best for the organization? I love that. So why do you call this dynamic leadership?
Yeah. So it's really based on the ability to change your approach, right? There is no perfect leadership style. And so you have to be dynamic. You have to be able to show up.
Yes.
And so one of the exercises that I do with anyone I'm coaching, and I do this personally, anyone, people can get this worksheet for free. I put it up if you go to chrisdubois.us, I just have a Notion page where I put up all my frameworks and stuff. So you can just, if you want to use them, go ahead. For the leaders marks, this is how you use this one. I recommend everyone do a daily AAR, right? After action review. Sit down, just what went well today? What didn't go well? How can I show up better tomorrow?
Love it.
And through this, right, I basically identified 4 different categories. So you got connection, capacity, cohesion, and presence. And within those, there are different skills, kind of areas that you can focus on to know how you're showing up in a certain situation. And so under connection, right, there's communication. So should I be transmitting right now or receiving more? And it's all things right under capacity, the level of risk assumption. Should we be more cautious or should we be aggressive? And there's no perfect answer. It's going to change depending on that situation. And so with this one, if we have tons of time to make a decision here, I'm going to lean towards being more cautious. I don't need to rush into a decision. Yeah. But if I have to make something right now, we're going to make that decision. I'm going to accept a higher level of risk because we need to. I can't hesitate on that. And so through this, that worksheet has all of these lined up. And what I do when I'm coaching someone is we'll pick a certain situation that had happened during the day. And we say, all right, what was our target outcome? Right. And now, how did you show up in reality? Like, actually be honest with yourself. How did you perform here? And we put an X, like somewhere on the spectrum for all of the answers. And I would say, okay, how did that actually work? Was it good? Was it bad? Right. And we decide, did we get the result that we were actually aiming for? And more often than not, we didn't, unless we have some experience from before. We just don't. And so here we can now say, okay, let me take like a different color marker and put an X where I believe I should be. And so the next time a situation similar to this pops up, I now know, okay, last time I did this, right, I was transmitting a lot when I should have been receiving more. I should have been listening to my team. And I thought maybe I didn't have enough time. I thought they were more inexperienced. And so I felt I should push more of my knowledge on them. But really, I should be pulling from them because they actually have more knowledge than I do. And so having that knowledge, that awareness of your team, of you, of the situation, it's just more front of mind. And so when you go into this next situation, you're able to, lean on that. And you're not guessing as you go in. You're saying, hey, I have proof. I had a hypothesis, right? It didn't work. Let me run another test to see if this works. And you try it again. You do another after action review at the end of that one. You try it again until you get the feeling. And this becomes so, it becomes intuitive, right? Where now I have these ingrained in my head. So before I go into a situation, I can say, how much discipline do I need for here? Do I need to be really strict, or can I be more lenient with my team? And I can it pops in my head, and I actually ask myself that question, because that feels like something I need to hone in on. And now I'm generally getting better results than I was before because I'm following this dynamic leadership approach.
I love doing the AAR, the hot wash afterwards, right? And saying what we're right, what we're wrong, how would I do it different next time? I think that third question is key, because I think that's when you translate experience into learning. That's going to carry forward. People think experience makes you better. I don't buy that. I don't think experience makes you any better at all. I think evaluated experience makes you better. And that third question is the evaluation. Like, what would I do different in the situation in the future, so that the next time you are in a similar thing, right? You're going to carry that because you processed it. You took the time to do that. If you don't, you're just going to keep circling the same drain. You're never going to take that learning forward because you never processed it. I love that model. I love the dynamic nature of that.
So that's actually, I use a lot of formulas in my leadership, like math formulas, which I have never liked math. It's not something I've been good at. But I find it very easy to take something complex and make it simple so that I can get across an idea. And when it comes to growth, right, the formula I use is knowledge times execution. And it becomes very easy because you get a lot of people who they will read a lot of books, right? They might get all of their college experiences around leadership, but then they don't put it to play.
Right.
They don't go test it out. And so all you have is knowledge.
Yep.
And you can't actually evaluate that. And so, it's an easy way. There's a couple other good, that system, right? Just using the formulas. Overwhelm. This is my favorite one. I get a lot of team members who are like, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. It's okay. And so I can kind of pull them aside and be like, all right, let's focus for a second. There's two things that cause overwhelm, right? It's high demands and a lack of clarity. So let's look at high demands, right? Is there stuff I can take off your plate right now to make it easier so you have more time, you have more mental capacity to be able to execute this? And if we can solve it with that, awesome. Or we move over to lack of clarity. Do you just not know what the next thing you should be working on is? What the priority is right now? Yeah. And usually just by solving those two, it's like the overwhelm goes away. It becomes much easier. And I've literally had team members leave conversations and say like, thank you. That made complete sense. I feel so much better. It's like, boom, now they can go actually do their job. And it just took, this super complex, it's hard to package overwhelm and work through those feelings. But if you can just throw it in a little formula like this and say, well, is it this or that? And then they work through it. And so,
that's so good.
That's a fun one.
I love that formula for overwhelm. I think that's so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It is about taking the complex and making it simple.
Right.
And I think that's what great communicators do. I think that's what great coaches do. We take something that people look at and they're like, oh, they're overwhelmed by it. We're like, wait. Let's break it down. Yeah. Let's make it bite-sized pieces that you can process. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, oh, of course. I love that. I love both of those formulas. Now I got to go to chrisdubois.us. Now I got to
I
check
got them
these
up there
out.
too. Right.
That's fantastic.
Got a whole list of them.
You work with a lot of leaders, and from your own experience and from your own coaching now, and actually acting as a CEO and leading an organization.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the good, the bad, the ugly. You see a lot of people who get it right. You see a lot of things people do that are fantastic, and you see things that are, well, not so great, right?
Yeah.
Out of your purview, looking at that whole broad thing, what are some mistakes that you think leaders get wrong?
Some of the, I won't say worse, some of the least effective leaders that I have ever worked with have been very closed off to awareness. Like that, I mean, that's the kind of the big one, right? So I use the ACT framework for everything: awareness, communication, and trust. If you can nail those three things, most of your other leadership challenges go away. But like I had one, here's an Army story. This one's fun. I had one of the best company commanders I could ever work with. I was his executive officer, his right-hand man. He and I jived, like, it was awesome. And then he went to his next unit and we got another guy in who was the opposite. And this guy had been, earlier in his career, had been enlisted. And so he was a staff sergeant at one point. But so he was trying to run our company like he was a staff sergeant. And generally at that level, right, you have a lot more control, where when you get up to the company level, you need more command, where it's like, hey, let me give guidance and you guys take that discipline initiative to run with it. And so like this guy did the craziest things, where he was trying to have like be so tightly constrained, because for him that worked before, and he didn't have the awareness to know it wasn't working. To the point, like one day we woke up, 3 a.m. We threw on our rucksacks. We walked, I think, 6 miles out to the land navigation site, and we trained all day. We did like 3 iterations, and then we did a night iteration. And so this came out to like walking in the woods, looking for random signs, right, to make sure you can plot on a map and find them. We had probably 20 miles right on our feet, and then we walked back. And so we get back to the company probably 2 a.m, and we have a formation. We get ready to take off, go home, so everybody can go to sleep. And he steps out and says, "Hey, we're doing a year analysis. Like, line up." And so everyone's like shocked, because it takes hours, right, to get 150 people through the bathroom to pee in a cup. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm his right-hand man. I better go tell him this is probably a bad decision. And so I walked in his office and I said, "Hey, sir, are you sure this is what we want to do? Why don't we let him go to sleep? And when they come back to work in the morning, we do the year analysis." And he said, "This is my company. I make the rules." And so I'm like, roger that. And so I turned around, I walked back into our open bay, and everyone was staring at me like, "Did you save us?" And I was like, "Let's go, guys." And like, hurry up. And so everybody, it was the fastest year analysis probably the Army has ever had. But we went off, we did, they finished that. And then he came back out, said, "Okay, thank you. Be back for PT training at 6:30. It was like 4 a.m. And so we now have people driving, right? Like not being safe, obviously, driving home after being awake for 24 hours. Just sleep for an hour, come back. Basically, they're going to shave and then come back to work. And so it was just like, he had no awareness that any of that was either good or bad. Like he didn't see the morale within the company, and the culture started to suffer, where people, we had DUIs within like from our soldiers, and like they were going out getting in a lot more fights over the weekends. And it was because they didn't have that cohesion, and like they didn't get excited going to work and like to enjoy that type of stuff. And so I would say, I mean, that's just one story, obviously more on the corporate side. I haven't had anyone do something like that yet for one of my coachees, but awareness is huge. It's just, if you can just sit back and say like, what am I doing right now? How can I better show up? Half the time that question solves everything, and you can now perform better.
My goodness. That's remarkable. But I think it illustrates something that everybody listening, I mean, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a solopreneur or a C-suite leader, like awareness matters. You got to be aware of not only what's going on around you, but what you are bringing. Like your words, I love how Andy Stanley says this, your words as the leader weigh 10,000 pounds, whether you want them to or not.
Right.
right? I just
Yeah, I
want to
love
be
that.
I just want to be one of the guys in the break. I just want to be whatever. You're the leader. Your words weigh
Mhm.
10,000 pounds. If you're aware of that, then you're going to be mindful and you're going to be very cautious with the words that you use and the people that
Right.
you're going to use them with. Too many leaders, I think, are like the guy you were talking
Yeah.
about. And they're just
Yeah.
like, no, I'm in charge. I'm the boss. That's what it says on the door. Do what I
Mhm.
say.
And what makes
That's
it worse for individuals like that, right? His reputation followed him. Like
oh
people talk, and it's the
yeah.
same in corporate America. It's the same in
Yeah,
the
it is.
sports world. Like
Yes.
people know how you showed up and how you made them feel.
That's
And
right.
so if like he is now never going to be successful in his other positions because like he's not showing up with on a great note. And
Yeah.
so it's just if you as a leader want to avoid that, just don't go there in the first place. It's pretty easy.
So good. So good, man.
But
You look back over your journey. I mean, think back to when you were that 22-year-old version of Chris. If you could have a conversation with yourself, what is one thing you wish you had known then that you know now?
uh, there's a lot. I think I'm actually very glad that my journey has gone the way it has. I feel like I've every step I have learned what I needed to learn in that moment.
That's
And it
good.
was I could not have planned it better for myself.
Mm,
Like
that's
the
good.
hard times, I needed to be in that hard time to get that lesson. I would
Yeah.
not have listened to it,
Yeah.
unless I was there.
Yeah.
But I would say if I needed one thing that would have made my life easier, it would have been just more quickly uh, being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Ooh.
Right. So I think Viktor Frankl,
Yeah.
right, says that it's only
Sure.
suffering if you don't apply meaning to it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of our military training too, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we're going to go do a 20-mile, ruck march with 50 pounds on our back. Like you're going to be miserable. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But you're not suffering
Right.
as long as you tell yourself I'm doing this so that when I show up on the battlefield, I'm showing up on the battlefield,
That's
right?
right.
There's meaning behind this. And so
Yeah.
now I'm just uncomfortable. It's not that bad. But there's so many other situations. I hated public speaking. I
Mm.
was terrified of it. And I realized as I was starting to move up in ranks, I had to talk in front of people a lot more. And so I started putting myself in the situations where I was definitely uncomfortable, doing these things. But I got way better at it. I started to almost crave that feeling of like
Mm.
stepping towards the fear and
Mm.
jumping in and knowing I was going to grow from this because I had the knowledge of my past experiences, right? The execution now equals growth.
Good.
And yeah, so I think understanding that to be uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, that would have made probably increase my growth rate on
Mm.
everything.
That's so good, man. I mean, we know that with the clients that we work with the leaders that we talk to, like growth does not happen in your comfort zone. Like we know
Right.
that. We know
Right.
that intellectually. We teach that. We write that. We know that. But then we have to go through a time when we're uncomfortable. We're like, can this
Yeah.
end soon? Like, but
When
that's
it's,
where growth is.
yeah. Well, and how often do you seek uncomfortability?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we'll get to a
Yeah.
point where it's like, this is uncomfortable. I have to work through it. But how often do we actually push that boundary
Mm.
to say, no, I am going to grow through this? Like, let's go find something that I can
That's
grow
so
with.
good. That's so good. So you've seen leaders come and go, and you have come and gone into different organizations, different levels. I mean, going from a copywriter to director of ops, now to CEO, those are very different, right? Those are very different levels,
Yeah.
very different responsibilities. Somebody who's listening, and people who are listening are agency owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're leaders in so many different areas of life. And some of them are young leaders. Some of them are new and emerging leaders. Like, what would you recommend for a young or emerging leader, or for a leader who's stepping into a new organization, maybe as they're coming in? What's something that you would say, hey, keep this in mind?
I have a concept I call the leadership levers,
Mhm.
where there are 4 ways that a leader can actually use leverage because of their position in order to make things happen faster. Right. And so you have capital. So like money, I can actually throw money at a problem because generally a leader has a budget
Yeah, that's true.
to be able to do it.
That's true.
You have your connection, which is your network, and you
Yeah.
can lean on that. Like as a leader, you're going to generally have a lot more people, and you can use the fact that you're in a leadership position to give something back to others so that you can leverage that. Your character is a big one, right? People are going to want to follow you if you're the type of person worth following. And so that's big. But the one that I think I would focus on here as well, because those kind of take some time to really build up, but the culture is the last lever, right? If you have a good culture, people are going to want to be in your organization. They're going to want to work with you. Culture is the one thing that a leader truly owns. Everything else can be delegated. You can put other people in charge, but when it comes to your culture, right, that is completely on the leader, because you are the one who holds the standard. And so, like, one, you have your culture, and then you have the climate. Where are we currently at in relation to what we want as the ideal culture? The difference is that culture gap. You want that as small as possible, so you're showing up the way you need to. The way that gap increases is by not holding people accountable to the standard you have set. And so, are you hiring people who fit in with that culture? Are you promoting the people who also meet that culture? Are you getting rid of the people who should not be there? Right? Because when people come in and they say, they deliver work, or they finish some task somewhere, is it at our standard? And it's the leader's responsibility to say, hey, like, it's not, right? And sometimes those are the uncomfortable conversations where you can say, hey, I know you're doing the work, but like, this is our standard, right? People like us do things like this. That's how Seth Godin defines your culture. And if you start viewing it like that, right? People like us do things like this. Our group, our company performs at this level, and we need all of us to perform here. This is the standard. I need everybody showing up like that. And so I think if you, as a junior leader, right, someone just up and coming, you want to really make a name for yourself, show up knowing that is your responsibility. And if you can truly own it and, like, take that on, you are going to have way better results. I think, like, everything is going to flow easier for you if you can nail that now. Add that to advice that I should have told my previous self.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's really good. Culture is something that I think a lot of leaders don't spend a lot of time thinking about, but you're spot on. That's the one thing that you really control and that you really own. And I think that's something we need to spend more time as leaders, whether we lead one person or whether we lead 1,000, thinking about, what is the culture I want to intentionally design? What is the cultural environment I want to create? And then to do so with that type of purpose, that type of intentionality. If we do that, you're spot on. People are going to be like, hey, how can I be a part of this? Give me openings.
Well, that's exactly it. And it's important to, when you first go into an organization, say, what is the current culture?
Yes.
And then now, all right, what is the culture I want? How do I bridge that gap? And it's a lot of, like, people are thinking this way. I need to get them thinking this way. What are the things I can say? What are the actions I need to take in order to get them there? And so, like, when I took over for company command, it was at an infantry, like, basic training setup. And my battalion commander pulled me aside at the start, and he's like, hey, this is the weakest company that we have in the battalion. I really need you to do something. So I sat back for a bit. I watched what they were doing, and I realized, one, these guys were awesome. And I will, like, to this day, if they call me, text me, I'm on it, because you are an awesome person who is worth, like, jumping, hoops for and whatever. But their previous leader was not. The culture was, he would say, hey, we're doing this for training. And it would be like at a miserable hour we're doing just miserable training. It's raining, but we're going to go out and do this anyways, right, on your off day. And then that he would not show up. And so, one of my first days with them, they were doing a PT test, right? So it's 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. And it's super simple, right? But everyone in the Army has to do this test. And so they were taking it. So I showed up to take it with them. And they're like, hey, sir, what are you doing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I doing? Like, you're taking a PT test. So I'm here with you taking a PT test. So, like, yeah, but we've never had an officer take a PT test with us. I'm like, well, that changed right now. And I did it with them. And when we started changing that culture, but by the end of my time, so when I had my evaluation with my brigade commander, right? So battalion commander had 6 companies. Brigade commander has like 30 something. And when I met with him, he said, hey, you have created one of the strongest companies within this battalion, within this brigade. But I had soldiers who would actually come up to me and say, "Hey, what do I need to do to get into your company?" And it's like, and that's not really how the Army works, right? But they were just like, we see you're letting people actually do their job and you're treating them with respect, and like they get to go home and see their families at the end of the day. And it's like, yeah, because that's a reward for us showing up and working hard and just doing all the things together.
Good.
And so, yeah, that was another fun story.
I love that. You illustrated something. I've heard John Maxwell say this 100 times. Leaders lead from the front. I mean, you don't lead from the rear.
Right.
That's not wise.
Yeah.
And I think what you illustrated there is, I'm going to change the culture, but I'm going to do so from the very front. We think about culture. I was having a conversation with a client actually a couple hours ago about this, about building a different mindset. They needed to shift their mindset around something. And I said, mindset is a lot like culture. You do not build it in 10 minutes. You can't get there.
Yeah.
Right? It takes time. It's like, and I think about it like building something out of Legos, out of small Legos, right? It's one brick at a time, really. And eventually you can build the Millennium Falcon, but you're not going to do that in 10 minutes. It's going to take some time to get there. Your mindset is like that. Organizational culture is like that. Team culture is like that. You decide, though, as the leader, what you're going to build. You have the picture in your mind and say, okay, this is where we are. How do we get from here to there? And I love the intentionality that you did that.
Right.
That's so good, man. That's so good.
Yeah.
Let's shift for a minute to talk about your coaching, because you're stepping into this new place, right? What is it that you want to see happen in this? You see in your mind like what you want this to become. What do you see?
Yeah. So I have the very lofty goal of helping 1 million people recognize and realize their life goal. And so that's really hard to like put down on paper. I'm not going to go through like an individual and be like, check one. All right, good. And so because I'm not willing to do that, what I realize is that, I can go help individuals and I can talk to people, but if I help a leader, I can now exponentially help everyone they're working with.
Yes.
Because if you can help, like, just imagine, even for yourself, like being just that happy team member. You love showing up at work because you're excited, you're being used, you're doing the things you love, people treat you well, right? Everything's great. You're going home and you're not stressed about work. You're leaving work there because you're in a great mood. You're going to show up, you're going to spend time with your family. You're going to be playing with your kids, volunteering in your community, doing all of these things that contribute back to society. Yeah. And it starts with the leaders just being able to set people up so that they actually enjoy their lives, by doing their best work with you and being able to get excited about everything that they're doing. And so I really like with coaching, it's really a passion to just help more people be able to follow their passions and stuff through leaders.
What do you think would be different in your life, in your world, if you did that? If you saw 1 million people, because of your influence, change their lives?
That is a good question, because personally, I would just now up the goal to 2 million. And so it wouldn't change much. I'm just like, all right, let's go bigger. Like we knocked that one out. But I feel awesome. And here's the thing, like I feel awesome helping one person, right? I had, this was just a friend who I was helping. He started at a company and wanted to move into a leadership position. And so I just given him some simple coaching, just like, try this. And it was very casual. It wasn't paying me or anything. But as he got that on track, he also, he shot me a message a couple months later, really. But said, hey, I got that promotion. They're looking at me for another promotion. And then started adding, I've started dating again. He was, divorced. He's an older guy. It's like, I started dating again. I'm loving actually like living right now. My doctor just took me off all my medication because I've started taking care of my health again. And it was just, and he had, a couple other smaller things, but it was like that text, I was just like high for the day. I was just like, I felt good. And it was just like, man, this is what I need to be doing. I just need to be helping people. And so if I can find a way to get that leverage, right, and exponentially help more people, like I'm going to take that opportunity and follow that passion. So
I love that. I think that is a high calling for what we do. In pouring into and investing in helping leaders to grow and thrive, not just survive, not just make it through another day. Oh, I made it. Okay, made it to Friday. Okay.
Exactly.
And then you get the Sunday night blues because Monday's coming. There's something
Yeah.
better. There's a better way to
Right.
do life. I love
Yeah,
that.
definitely.
So many people who are listening, like they can enumerate what their goals are. They can say, yeah, it's this. This is where I want to go. This is what I want most. And this is what would be different. But here's the question that's often the showstopper. What's stopping you?
Right now, embarrassingly, it's getting my name out there more. And
Yeah.
I say it embarrassingly because I am running a marketing company. But it's really just now focused, like shifting kind of some of my focus to say, how do I just get my name out there so that people can find me as a leadership coach to know that I am someone who can help them. And so,
I love that. And this is one way I hope that our listeners are going to say, oh, hey, I need to check this guy out. ChrisDuBois.us. We'll have that in the show notes, of course.
Yeah. So that's just for, I have a bunch of like frameworks, different tools you can just pull. Has like, I was using it as like a resume type page, which is a lot of fun. You can copy it if you guys want.
I love that.
But I got a website up. It's leadingforeffect.com. Effect.
Excellent.
You check that out. I also launched a podcast this week, which was just a fun little, passion project. Just said, hey, I got all these ideas on leadership. Why don't I start talking into a microphone and putting them into the internet? And so you can find that now wherever you listen to podcasts. Unbound with Chris DuBois. And hopefully you enjoy it and leave some ratings and reviews. I will read them because I like torturing myself by reading all of reviews whenever I have them.
I love that. Well, and we know in podcast world, that's how people find new shows. It's by the ratings and reviews. So I'm going to challenge everybody listening to go to Unbound with Chris DuBois and listen to at least one episode and leave a rating and review. All right. And selfishly, if you haven't done that for the Catalytic Leadership Podcast, please leave a rating and review because truly this does make a difference in helping people find new shows.
It does.
And I'm excited to see what all is going on here. One question I ask everybody as we move toward the close. What is a book that has really impacted you on your journey that you would recommend that every leader listening, if you could put one book on your to-read list, this is the book?
I read a lot of books. So this has been my most gifted book for a couple years now. Essentialism by Greg McKeown.
Such a great book.
It's just a lot. I think a lot of people struggle with being able to get to like, what is that actual essential element that I need to be focused on here? They have trouble saying no. Yes. It's just, if you can nail that, if you understand how to prioritize, you're going to be way more productive, way more effective, and you can run your team a lot better.
All right. Last question. If people walk away with one thing from this episode, Chris, what's the one thing you want them to walk away with?
Prioritize awareness. Just in all facets, whether it's personal, interpersonal, situational, right? Or just your team, your overall team, build that awareness, get comfortable with pushing yourself on just becoming more aware. If you can do that, I can guarantee you a majority of your problems, especially as a leader, are going to go away.
I know folks listening are going to want to stay connected with you and continue learning from you. We've talked about your podcast. We've talked about a couple of sites, but I'm going to let you share those one more time, and we're going to have all these links in the show notes as well.
Sure. So to have go through your heart's desire for all of these different worksheets and other tools and assets, you can go to chrisdubois.us. Those are just up there. You can just grab whatever you want. No email required or anything. It's all just open on a Notion page. Leadingforeffect.com is where I've got everything that I'm willing to do on the leadership side, and you can ask me whatever you want there. And then Unbound with Chris DuBois, new podcast. Feel free to check it out, leave a rating and review, all the fun stuff. And and you can connect with me on LinkedIn, just Christopher DuBois.
Perfect. Yeah. I'm going to encourage everybody to do this, and specifically to go to your podcast, because that's a big deal. Excited for you, man. Excited for you starting this brand new journey, brand new part of your journey. This has been a great conversation, man. I appreciate your generosity today and sharing so freely. You've been so open and so generous. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. Conversations with you have been some of the highlights of my weeks here. Just very enjoyable. So,
thanks for joining me for this episode today. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do two things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, if you don't have a copy of my newest book, Catalytic Leadership, I'd love to put a copy in your hands. If you go to catalyticleadershipbook.com, you can get a copy for free. Just pay the shipping so I can get it to you, and we'll get one right out. My goal is to put this into the hands of as many leaders as possible. This book captures principles that I've learned in 20 plus years of coaching leaders in the entrepreneurial space, in business, government, nonprofits, education, and the local church. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take a next step with a coach to help you intentionally grow and thrive as a leader, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to catalyticleadership.net to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, leaders, choose to be catalytic.
Thanks for listening to Catalytic Leadership with Dr. William Attaway. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode. Want more? Go to catalyticleadership.net.